Hey folks, welcome back to our Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Icaion. I hope I'm saying that right. Icaion is brought to you by Tabula Games. It's for 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and games range anywhere from 90 to 120 minutes. In Icaion, you play a seeker or an adventurer looking for relics, artifacts, and Qoam, all in an effort to have the most reputation points. Now, there are other seekers that you're going to have to deal with along the way, but more importantly, there's the giant colossus that roams the land, spreading parasites for you to deal with. All right, so this is a pretty big game, and there's a lot to set up. So we're just going to go over some of the basics, just kind of an overview. Now, let's take a look at the main board. The board is broken down into regions as well as these little node points. The node points are where you're going to move your characters around the map. There's also these big circular areas. These are the craters that the Colossus will be moving through. Now, the different colored crystals match the different regions, and these crystals are very crucial to everything you're doing in the game because you'll have to spend crystals to do different activations such as deploy your machines, to camp, to investigate the Colossus, to deal with parasites, things of that nature. Now, around the outside of the board is where you'll be calculating your reputation points throughout the game. And let's take a closer look at this Colossus. Colossus is going to spawn basically these parasites represented by these cubes in this particular prototype. But the Colossus has shards that connect to his base. They're actually really cool, and they have different numbered values on them, and when you inspect him, you can get these particular shards in order to get even more reputation points. Now let's take a look at the event board. The event board has two sides based on the player count in the game. Will dictate which side you use. There's a deck of event cards that you'll shuffle up and put in their spot, as well as colossal cards. Colossal cards will be randomly placed in years 1, 2, and 3. The years represent the rounds of the game. And then you have your curio cards. These are going to do different things throughout the game to help you out your particular characters. And that board is pretty much ready to go. Now there's tons of different icons on here. Some that relate to the colossal moving across the board. Some relate to how many crystals get placed out if an environment card pops up. Some relate to parasites that get placed out on the board as well. And at the start of the game, you're going to take the colossal card that's in the first year slot, and you're going to shuffle it into the event deck and prep it for play. Now, each player receives a division board or a player board and a set of machinery. This machinery runs from the harvester to the scavenger to the refiner, and you're going to be placing them in their particular rows and columns. Now, you're also going to randomly get a seeker card, which is your character, and a specialized gear card. These cards will be placed in the slotted areas on your division board. These cards will also outline what starting crystals you get and what your player hand or your hand limit for cards for the curio cards will be. Now, all these seekers have unique different abilities, and every time you play, it is random to which seeker and special ability card you get. So it really mixes and matches up how you might play each time. These different characters range from having special abilities of movement to having special reputation points granted based on playing curio cards, or even giving you special points based on collecting shards from the Colossus. But the key is that each time you play, these are dealt randomly, so you really have some different play and unique strategies that you can employ each time you play. Now, each player also receives 3 curio cards. These are kept secret from the other players, as well as a special power-up token. You'll be using that throughout the game for special things. And then if you notice the board, it also has these slots along the bottom, as well as this notch on the side. These are all representative for the different apparatuses that you may gather from the city. Now, this is definitely a worker placement style game. However, as you move your machinery from your division board, it actually, in essence, levels up your character. So the first row is all about eradication, being stronger to deal with parasites. And the second row is all about movement. So as you deploy machines from each of these rows, then it's going to open up more slots and give you more ability for movement or more ability for eradication. Now, the third row is all about these null cages. What's a null cage? Null cage is all about holding those crystals. And as you acquire crystals, you need null cages to place them in. And you cannot just add to a null cage. You have to put crystals in a new cage or an empty cage that's available. Or you can swap out crystals from ones that you're pulling from the board, but you can't just have them accumulate in a particular null cage. Now, at the start of the turn, the first player is going to take the top event card and flip it over. Now, there's all kinds of different things that can happen here. Specifically though, if you get an environment card, you're going to be taking a look at the color. And in this case, we're going to be placing 2 blue crystals because for each of those regions that are blue, because the number value under the card being placed in the slot is a 2. And there are things to take note of here. There are maximums for crystals based on player count and things of that nature. But if you happen to reveal a colossal card, other things happen, like the colossal starts to move between craters, parasites appear, and they come out adjacent to the colossal, as well as any of the characters that are on nodes near. Again, nodes are the lines and the little dots where your characters move. But any characters that are adjacent to the colossal, he will attack. And if you are wounded from his attack, then you have a couple choices. You can either discard a curio card, or you have to lay your character down. And then on your next turn, when you do stand back up, you'll be limited on what you can do. Now, there are several actions you can perform. You have to do one of these on your turn. Now, before you do those though, and before we take a kind of an overview look at them, first you're going to do movement. And movement, you get up to 2 spaces you can move for free. Again, those are not zones or not areas. You're going to be moving along those node points along the lines. You can move up to 2 for free as indicated on your player board. And as you deploy these different machinery, then you will get more movement, but you will have to pay the cost to do those additional movement. So those are things to keep in mind as well. But you're going to be moving your guys into position in order to do any number of these next actions we're going to take a look at. And it's important to note, you don't have to move. However, you would have to pay a blue crystal in order to camp at the spot that you're currently at. Now, the first action we're going to take a look at is extract, one of the main things you'll probably be doing throughout the game because you need these crystals. And whatever node your character is standing on, you get to pull 1 crystal from each region that you are adjacent to. Now, if you happen to have one of your machines deployed there, like the harvester, then you get to pull an extra crystal. However, if you have the refiner there, for the crystals you pull, you get actually reputation points. Now, if you happen to have a scavenger there, then that will allow you to pull an extra curio card. All right, so now let's take a look at deploying machines. This is how you're going to unlock more abilities of your particular character based on which row you're pulling them from. And you have to deploy left to right. You can't just willy-nilly pick machines anywhere from your board. But when you do deploy, you have to pay the cost. So the way that works is that whatever region you're going to place it in, it has to be adjacent again to your character or your seeker that's on a node. And whatever region that you do place that machine in, you have to pay the cost, which is that particular color's region. So if I'm placing in blue, I have to pay a blue crystal in order to place my harvester there. And each of the regions can only have 3 machines. They have to differ in color and type. Next up, we're eradicating parasites. And we're representing parasites by these cubes in the game right now. Again, this is the prototype. That's why they're these cubes. And you look at your row, your eradication row, and you have to pay the gray crystal in order to do this. Now, however many machines you've deployed from this row will dictate how many parasites you can actually eliminate by paying that 1 crystal. Now, to investigate the colossal, you'll have to have a seeker on a node next to his crater. And then you'll pull one of the primal shards, revealing its number to the table. And for every pink crystal that you pay towards that shard, you will gain reputation points. Now, if you pay the maximum cost of that shard, then you get to keep the shard and put it on your player board. Now remember, the game is played in 3 overall rounds known as years, and this comes into play particularly for these apparatuses that we're going to look at next. You're going to be acquiring them and then you're going to be installing them, but these are different actions. So the first bit is that you have to be on a node adjacent to the city, and then you can acquire one of the apparatuses, but you have to acquire the appropriate apparatus for the year you're currently playing, year 1, 2, or 3. You'll put it on the side of your board ready for installation, and you will immediately score reputation points based on which apparatus that you have acquired. Now, this is very different based on the different types of apparatuses. You're going to get points for the different machinery that you've placed. You're going to get different points for your level of eradication, your curio cards, and things of that nature. Now, installing an apparatus is a little different. You have to be adjacent or on a node adjacent to a crater of the type or the color of the apparatus. If you are, then you can install it at the bottom of your board. Again, paying attention to what year or round you're currently in and which apparatus you're installing. And then at the end of the game, these apparatuses are going to provide even more reputation points. Or finally, you can just keep watch. You can choose to not perform a standard action. And then there are special actions, and these are going to do some very different things. If you use that overcharged ability and you flip it over, then you get to either acquire more crystals, you might get more curio cards, or it might give the ability to perform another standard action. And finally, you can play one of your curio cards. Now, the curio cards all do very different things, and some are one-shots, some are upgrades to your character, basically, or your seeker. And they all have a cost in green crystals. At the top of the card will show you what that cost is. The upgrades range from upgrading your different levels, your different abilities of your character in each of these rows, like having more slots for gathering crystals, or increasing your eradication ability or your movement ability, things of that nature. Just acquiring crystals, or giving you upgrades that allow you to turn one type of crystal into another. So again, these curios do very different things, and they're very valuable cards to have and use throughout the game. So it's important to note as you travel through the overall rounds, known as years, that these apparatuses are all going to swap out from years 1, 2, and 3. And then when you place the final event card in that final year, then you're going to finish out the round, you're going to tally up all the parasite points as well as any crystals that you have left, or your apparatuses that you may have powered up with crystals of the same type, as well as shards that you've acquired from the Colossal, and then score your final points, and whoever has the most reputation is going to be the ultimate seeker. Alright folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form. So keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, this is a pretty big game with lots of things going on, and I just gave kind of a brief overview of the different actions, but there's a lot more detail that can go into those and a lot of things that can happen. So it's something to keep an eye on, and go download that rule book and take a look at it if you want more information. Now, as worker placements go, this has been pretty unique. I like the fact how the machines come off and level up your character, basically, giving you more abilities and more actions and bigger, more powerful seekers, so to say. And the game really flows nicely. It seems like a lot of things are going on, but as you move through those different types of actions and you discover them and how they work, the game does move pretty quickly, unless you're prone to analysis paralysis. All right, folks, but ultimately, if this looks like a game that would be of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.